everyone. Today we're going out on a trail that we have not driven before. It is a trail that does go onto a plowed road and off, so for safety we're only taking 2 teams and a snowmobile. That way we can safely cross the road or get on and off the road and have more control over the teams. We're also only going to take 5 dogs each. Yeah, we're trying to get out to a nice lookout that we've heard about, so we're looking forward to seeing what we can see up there. It's beautiful out, and we're gonna have a nice time.
So more or less everything that we're driving today, except the big lake in the beginning, are brand new trails for us. We haven't been able to access these trails. So we've always been able to access these trails, but it's tricky because it's a 600-meter plowed road that we need to drive on to then do a road crossing that's sort of in an S shape. It's a little bit too tricky, even if it's not a very high traffic road. Just that little bit too risky to do that when you're not having like a support snowmobile. But we did find a possible solution to it, going off onto a power line and then asking one of the people that lives there if it's okay if we make a trail just on the edge of the fields, and we would be able to just cross straight over the road, and we would be able to access that viewpoint and everything else on this side with ease. That would be very, very nice. We've tied the safety ropes. So we tied off the snowmobile to the second sled with the safety rope, and Hannah's safety rope we tied to the lead section behind the leaders. So we got a question from one of our subscribers from Canada asking how our kennel is set up, the way we're managing the kennel, if it is unique to us or general in Sweden, and some other questions regarding just how we keep our dogs. So we thought we'll go over that a little bit. Alright, let's start with a few rules and regulations first. In Sweden, when you're having dogs in a kennel setting like we do, if you have more than 10 dogs, you need to register it and have the local authorities come and approve your kennel setup, the sizing, the dog houses, and all of that stuff before you get the permission to have 10 dogs or more. Now we have 23 dogs at the moment, and they all have their kennels and houses and everything in order, so we have the permission to have the amount of dogs that we have. The size of the dog kennel is decided by the height of the dog. So the taller dog, the bigger the kennel. All of our kennels are the right size for the biggest dog that we have, meaning the smaller dogs, they have a bigger kennel than they actually need according to the welfare laws. But it's easier to build everything the same size compared to building individual kennels based on the size of the dog. That also means that when there's a generational shift in the kennel, the dog kennels will still be the right size for the dogs that we're having. It's the same thing with the dog houses. They are based on the length, height of the dog, which in one way can be a little bit problematic. When it is cold outside, the dog doesn't necessarily need the full height of themselves of a dog house. It's a lot of air to warm up for them to make sure that they're nice and warm. So even if they have their individual houses in the kennel, they tend to sleep together to save on energy and keep warmer. They are very smart animals in the end of the day. So while the size of the dog house, for example, is not necessarily sensible to working dogs living in Arctic conditions because of said problem with the energy it takes to warm up that space, the animal welfare laws are quite good. We're happy with it. We don't necessarily have anything to complain about how the animals should be kept or cared for. It's just something that you adapt to, and yeah, we like to keep our animals in the way we're supposed to.
So I first started working with sled dogs in Alaska, or in the US in general. And there, most people are using chains. I don't think chains are bad. I think that there are pros and cons to chains versus kennels. What I think is really important is the fact that dogs have a chance to play loose with their buddies. So what I really like about kennels versus chains is that they have a socializing aspect all the time. So they have a dynamic, which also has some downsides. It means it's a little bit harder to get that true one-on-one time with a dog unless you take them out for a walk or something like that. But now, because I have to have kennels, I really do like them, but they are more expensive. There's a lot more maintenance. Yeah, so there are some downsides. But as I said, I think the most important thing is that dogs always have a chance to be out loose. So when we moved to this area, we built a really large free running area so that the dogs could play. Our free run area is about 1,000 square meters.
So every morning and afternoon/evening while we're feeding them, we're picking poop. It's not the most glamorous job, but it's one of the most fun ones, because it's a fantastic time to just sit down and spend time with the dogs. When you're feeding, you of course can spend a little bit of time with them, but you want every dog to get their dinner. But when you're picking poop, you can just take as much time as you want and cuddle them a lot as well. So we're actually just using one of these. It's from the garden section of any sort of hardware store. I don't really know what it's called in English. It works very well. On the really sharp, deep parts where they might have been pooping, the pointy part works, easy to pick up. Or, for example here, it's easy to just sort of scoop it up. And this is just I don't know what to call it other than a poop collector from the farm store, on the horse section, where you scoop poop for the horses. It is a little bit heavier than a lot of other tools, but you don't need to swing and or chop as hard when you have the weight behind it, which is very nice. And yeah, we're cleaning twice a day just to make sure that they have a clean environment to live in. No one would like to live in their own poop or filth in that way. We just try to make sure that they get a nice and clean environment to live in as much as we can. And then we're also cleaning out in the yard so that when they are out playing and things like that, they don't need to stumble up in poop constantly. When it snows, the poop doesn't just disappear in the kennel. What is it, funny? All right, I'll come and pet you. When it snows, the poop doesn't just disappear in the kennel. It will reappear once the snow is melting away and thawing, and that is quite annoying. So every time it snows, we're spending extra time to actually sort of figure out where they've been pooping and try and dig out as much as we can. They often poop in the exact same area, so it makes our little treasure hunt a little bit easier. But it's something we also try to do to make sure that we don't end up with piles and piles of thawed poop when springtime comes.
And bacteria.
And bacteria, yeah, exactly. Each kennel is 30 square meters big, so they have a fairly big space for 2 dogs. They live 2 and 2 in the kennels, and they have 1 dog house each. The dog houses are insulated thickness. They're about 10 centimeters thick with insulation, and inside their dog houses they have a nice thick bedding of something called träull. It's basically wood shavings that looks like straw. It dries very fast, it fluffs up nicely, and it doesn't break down as fast as straw, we've noticed. And it smells quite nice and fresh as well. Straw you can use if you want to, of course, but we've chosen träull more than straw. The houses are lifted off of the ground, not for any particular reason more than that we have these tables for them. It is for us to make it easier in winter, so we don't need to shovel as much. They don't tend to get as drifted in with snow. They are lifted, and they have a nice big area to sit on and lay on. It is also by Swedish animal welfare law that they have to have a place lifted off the ground where they can lay on, so they can crawl under and get shade. So they have a little bit more of enrichment in their kennels.
Besides having some cuddle time with the dogs, yeah, I know. Picking up poop in the kennel is also a good opportunity to check the dog's weight. When you're going in for feeding, they're so focused on the food, as they should be, that they aren't gonna let you, or they're not gonna let you, they're not going to be interested in being cuddled at that time. They want their food, and that's good. So when you go in to pick up poop, they're more focused on you, and so it's a good time to check their weight. Yeah, oh yeah. Sneaky little butt scratch, lots of cuddles. Can also be checking to see if females are in heat. It's a good time to check that as well. And just check their overall health. Excuse me. You are out of control.